Hello and welcome to The Man from Hildebrand, Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. It feels like it's been a long time since I've done a video, but that's purely because there probably hasn't been much to sort of report on. So firstly, I believe, looking on the old social media chats and groups, that people are now receiving their hot toy James Bond figure, Daniel Craig figure. With what I understand, it basically comes with two sort of busts. So you've got the uninjured version and the injured battle version, which you see from the climax of the film. It comes with a sort of array of guns and weapons. It comes with the tuxedo, and it comes with the combat gear as seen in the end of the film. For me personally, I'm going to give this one a miss because the eyes and the detail just doesn't seem right. I kind of feel that they could have improved, and personally I think I've actually seen figures which are a lot more better than the hot toys kind of interpretation. I mean, if you're into that kind of thing and if you love it and if you want to spend £250, go ahead. But for me, it's just not sort of kind of hitting me really, and I am certainly intrigued to know what else, what they will bring next, what other characters they'll do next, and they may even do another Daniel Craig figure which is a little bit more improved. But the really cool thing about it is that this is the first official licensed Daniel Craig figure we've got. A couple of weeks ago, whilst promoting her latest project, Project Hail Mary, Bond producer Amy Pascal kind of was asked about her thoughts and the progress on Bond 26. She said that it's kind of still in early development. The film will shoot in the UK, presumably London, and that she's basically, doesn't want to fuck it up, which I kind of think is actually a really sensible answer. That alone says a lot. It says that, they aren't cocky, they are very conscious about it, and they know what they're dealing with. Amazon have basically spent billions on the world's longest running cinematic franchise that for 60 plus years have been controlled and owned by one family. That's now in Amazon's, and Amazon have gone and hired Denis Villeneuve to direct. They've hired David Heyman and Amy Pascal to produce, and they've got Stephen Knight on board to write. Those four figures are that I would not want to be in their shoes, because all of them. I mean, Denis Villeneuve is probably currently busy on Dune 3, but I should think as soon as he starts filming, there's going to have pressure. So yeah, and the thing with Amy Pascal, I'm pretty happy with it because she's already had that connection with Bond. She's produced 4 of the Daniel Craig films. She's had a close working relationship with Barbara Broccoli. So yeah, she knows that there is literally no room to fuck up, because if this film flops, which we hope it doesn't, and I can't see why it would, that basically means, where would Amazon go from now on? It's like, well, back to the drawing board. So yeah, understandably, there's a lot riding on this. So yeah, I mean, going a little bit political, I've said this, it's like, Britain and EU, we have been told that we've left the EU. Personally, I don't think we have. I think we are still tied to it, but they're not going to say that because it'll just cause a massive uproar. Similar with this, the media have told us that Amazon have took control of the Bond franchise. I still think that Barbara is tied to it because, whilst, Barbara and Michael would have set out stipulations, the do's and don'ts, they ain't going to just give up the franchise just like that. They have given a rule book. Until Barbara departs this world, yeah, things are going to change, probably for the worse. But as long as we've got Barbara, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if she'd be there when they cast the next Bond. She will probably have the final say. So I kind of still think that we are still in safe hands. A lot of people kind of stipulating where, what to expect from Bond 26. I personally think that we will play it safe, that they will play it safe, meaning that they aren't going to chuck a huge amount of money at it. I mean, we're not going to get A Spy Love Me or You Only Live Twice, on an epic scale, because they aren't going to spend, even though Amazon's worth billions. I just think business sense, they just want to, get Bond 26, out and just see how it plays. They're not going to spend a load of money on it if it flops. It's very similar to Casino Royale. Casino Royale, I think, was made on a budget of 60 million. That was 20 years ago. With inflation, I would probably say 150 million, I would imagine, would be their budget for Bond 26, and that's more the reason why they would go for an unknown actor. Playing it safe and scaling it back probably marries up to what Stephen Knight said back in February, where no more fun and games, no more gadgets, the trade and the spectacular for the psychological 1950s kind of gritty edge. It's going to be like same vibe as From Russia with Love or For Your Eyes Only or Casino Royale, where it's not massive, compared to some of the other adventures. If this obviously is a success, Bond 28, 29, Bond 30 even, maybe massive, maybe out there, but I think for Bond 26, they are going to just play it safe. With Stephen Knight saying, they're going to go back to the 1950s psychological edge, that doesn't in any way, shape or form mean that it's going to be a period piece set in 1950s, because apparently AI is the villain, so AI plays a huge part in this. It kind of also kind of marries up to what Stephen Knight had said last year about, kind of going back to the earlier Fleming novels of the 1950s and sort of getting that vibe. I mean, yeah, you could argue that there's not much left from the novels to be used, because characters, titles, certain elements have been used, but there's still little bits there which we haven't seen on the screen. We haven't yet seen Bond behind the wheel of a Bentley. As much as Aston Martin are really beautiful cars, and I know that they've got a really strong association with Bond films, I'm just absolutely sick to death of seeing them, especially the DB5. In Craig era, they overused that DB5, and I just don't want to ever see it again. Personally, I've always said that Casino Royale, when Daniel Craig was in it, they should have gone for the Bentley. If they're going back to the beginning, they should have gone to the Bentley. And for Bond 26, Bond needs to be in the Bentley. We also need Bond using the Beretta, as seen in the films. We've never seen it. Dr. No, we obviously had the scene where Major Boothwood comes along and introduces Bond to the Walther, as per novel. But I would like to see, Bond use the Beretta and just have that moment where he does jam on him and it puts him in hospital, and then we see Major Boothwood give him the Walther PPK under M's instructions. We may see Lolita Ponsonby. Moneypenny was M's secretary, Lolita was Bond's secretary. In the novels, Bond did quite a fair bit of paperwork. He was often in the office doing reports and stuff, which obviously we never really saw in the films. We only saw Bond's office twice. That was on Majesty's Secret Service and Die Another Day. So yeah, I reckon to kind of see Bond a little bit in the office just kind of gives you that sort of gritty, realistic flavour of the novels. Unfortunately for some, I think we will have another Daniel Craig interpretation. For me, I loved it. I know a lot of fans had problems because they thought he was too boring, too dull, not funny enough. I think in today's world, I just don't think it works. I think, if you look at all the spy series and dramas out there, it's all, real world, very dark, gritty. You could probably argue that the King's Men or King's Man sort of franchise is probably the closest we get to sort of the earlier Bond adventures. but if you go too far the other way, it's going to end up becoming a spoof. The thing, obviously, the Bond films were a product of its time. That's why Roger Moore got away with what he did. That's why Connery got away with what he did. That's why Brosnan got away with what he did. Daniel Craig was actually obviously suited for the 21st century. We are still in the 21st century, and I think that's kind of the way that we're going to be getting. It also kind of probably explains why we never got any confirmation on sort of David Heyman and Amy Pascal producing a series of films. It was only Bond 26. There was no mention of Bond 27 or Bond 28, which is, I mean, I'm not saying, if this is a success and it does well, they probably will be back. But I think Amazon, are playing it safe. They're doing it, just focusing on Bond 26 and seeing how it does. Denis Villeneuve, as far as we know, is just contracted to do one. Stephen Knight is only contracted to do one. Whether or not Stephen Knight's got an idea of a story arc, who knows? I don't know. But I think they're just going to focus on the one. I think for it to please us fans, I think Bond 26 has also got to be flawless. It's got to, basically be very much like what the Eon films are like. We've got to have the gun battle. We've got to have the pre-title sequence. We've got to have the title sequence with a great song. We've got to have all them sort of little quirks and little trademarks that we love and know from the Eon series in there. I mean, obviously the Daniel Craig era was slightly different, purely because the gun battle was never at the beginning. I kind of feel that if they kind of do it in a way where they kind of left off from where Die Another Day, where Pierce's run of films, because a lot of Bondologists kind of class from Doctor No through to Die Another Day. The first 20 films of Eon is sort of one series, as kind of one era, and then you get the Craig films, which are different. Even though those Eon produced and they're great films, they were different in terms of style. I think people, fans want the gun barrel back where it belonged. So, and obviously with the Daniel Craig films, you, for obvious reasons, you can't reference them, because it was a timeline on its own. Daniel Craig's James Bond died. It'll be daft to kind of refer to that. Yes, you could probably have a little bit of Easter eggs here and there, but as long as you have got that sort of Bond formula that Eon have created, and you've got plenty of Fleming in there, I think you can't go wrong, and you've got to obviously keep us hardcore fans happy, but you've also got to sort of bring it up to date with the new generation. I'd also managed to finally catch up and watch the Nine Manager Series 2. Now, the Series 1 was absolutely fantastic. So this was a very sort of anticipated kind of series. There's been a bit of criticism. A lot of people saying it wasn't very good. It was okay, but nowhere near as good as Season 1. It could be to do with the fact that it's not actually based on the story. This was totally original. There's probably kind of sprinkling of inspiration taken from the original Nine Manager novel by Le Carré, but this is a totally new kind of story. They kind of sort of expanded on the Jonathan Pine character, which kind of thought, oh, okay, this is like a new side to him. I didn't realise he was kind of bisexual, because there was moments where he was getting very friendly with the kind of same sex. Like, okay, where's this going? And then I thought, well, hang on, if he's kind of undercover, I suppose you've got to do what you've got to do. And then there was a scene where he was like taking cocaine and LSD and stuff. I was thinking, wow, did he do this in the first season? And then it kind of all of a sudden, he seemed to have got over it and seemed to have had his head screwed, kind of didn't seem to affect him. And like, as the missus said, well, if he's military trained, they probably do train you to kind of deal with shit like that. So, you know, how to kind of not let hardcore drugs affect you or things. And then I kind of thought, okay, I mean, we're saying this is what they could do for Bond 26, but definitely for the future. And this is probably going to cause some comments on the old social medias. Now, I'm not saying that Bond should be gay, but, you know, if Bond's, you know, kind of doing a mission and he's got to be undercover and he's got to blend in, then, yeah, he's got to do what he's got to do. I'm not saying, you know, make his character gay, because obviously that's not Fleming's character. But, you know, if it's, you know, I mean, obviously they kind of tease it with Skyfall, and people then kind of lost their shit. I thought, oh, okay, whatever. But no, it's just a bit of a thought. I thought, oh, that's interesting, you know, like get Bond sort of, you know, kind of, you know, getting gay with other males and, you know, taking heavy drugs and LSD and all that. It'd be kind of an interesting angle on it, but at the end of the day, he's a secret agent. He's got to do what he's got to do to be undercover. I think, you know, kind of for Amazon, I mean, so far, I can't really complain with Amazon, because what they're doing, you know, yeah, I mean, they've obviously given us Road to a Million. The next Wednesday, they're giving us Bait. Bait will be released on Prime. Bait's this new kind of comedy series based on James Bond, which was totally out of the blue, but I'm really looking forward to that. And gone full-blown 100% behind 007 First Light in terms of marketing and, you know, product placement, and the publicity. So, you know, 007 First Light is basically paving the way for Bond 26. They're trying to get Bond out there, get it to a new generation, to a new audience. They're, you know, and Amazon are working brilliantly with IO Interactive, because, you know, it's basically they have got to, you know, say, look, Bond isn't dead. Far from it. He's alive. Which is why we've now got these on our shelves. So a couple of episodes ago, I remember I kind of mentioned that maybe in the US these were available. These are now available in the UK. A lot of people on social media, in you know, British people, have managed to track them down in supermarkets. I got that from Sainsbury's, and I got it in a pack of 8. I don't drink Coke, so I basically just got 1 can and gave the rest to my parents. But to see these on the shelves is such a huge buzz, because we haven't seen this on the shelves for 6 years, since No Time to Die was out. So yeah, it's just such a buzz, because, you know, people go to the supermarket and even though they've got no interest in Bond, they still see it. I mean, they may even just, you know, still buy it because they like Coke, but not, you know, care what's on it. But at least they can see Bond is back. So yeah, it's, I mean, that also with that, I mean, that's kind of now the second sort of product we've got connected to the video game, because we've got Corgi's Valhalla being released in summer, which of course is from No Time to Die. So, you know, it's just amazing, because this is the first Bond game where we've actually had products tied to it. It was supposed to have been released next Friday on the 27th of March, but they've postponed that till 27th of May. I'm sure we will get, you know, I mean, in the meantime, we've still got the title song. I mean, I reckon whoever sings a title song, it's from reliable sources, it's said to be Lana Del Rey, but we'll see. I reckon that'll be on the radio. I reckon that'll get in the charts. We will probably have the soundtrack available to buy either on iTunes or Amazon, no doubt, or CD. Probably last week that Ian Fleming Publications have now delayed the release of M.W. Craven's James Bond and the Secret Agent Academy till next year. It was going to be released April this year. It's now been postponed till 2027. What the reason behind that is, I don't know. I don't know if it's down to scheduling conflicts. I don't know. But for sure, I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. Yeah, I mean, if you've got kids, great, brilliant. But for me, it's just, you know, I don't want James Bond teaching young kids how to be a spy. At the end of the day, I've gone with Charlie Hickson / Steve Cole, Young Bond Adventures. That does me fine, because that fills in that era. I know there was a bit of a fear that when Amazon took over the franchise that they were going to drain Bond and have spin-offs left, right and centre. So far, Amazon have been really good. It's actually Ian Fleming Publications seem to be doing that. And Yeah, you know. But with in talks of Ian Fleming publications, we have got Vaseem Khan's second Q mystery novel this year, The Man with the Golden Compass, which will probably mean that we'll probably get a title and some sort of announcement of his third and final novel for next year, no doubt. We have, of course, got Kim Sherwood's final 00 novel, Hurricane Room, which, even though I have not yet been in the right state of mind to actually make an attempt to read them, I will still get the hardback book because I really like the jacket designs, and I just hope that it's going to be the same height and everything, because as somebody who's got a little bit of OCD and likes things to be complete, there's nothing worse than having, you know, a set of books which have got the same kind of style, design and spines, but yet they're all different heights. It just drives me absolutely insane. Also, the James Bond Sound Off 2026 has arrived. Now, this is something this is the third year running, so over the past 2 years since 2024, it's just basically ranking all the Bond scores. You know, because over the years I've seen, you know, all these groups ranking their favourite films, ranking their favourite Bond girls, ranking their favourite Bond car, Bond song and all this and that. I think, you know what, nobody's actually took in the sort of appreciation or the, you know, kind of wonderfulness of the music itself, the score. So 2024, The Living Daylights came out at #1. Last year, On Her Majesty's Secret Service came out at #1. It's down to you guys to see what comes out at #1 this year. So it's basically every Wednesday I release a title over at Hildebrand, the James Bond page, the James Bond music page, and the Shaken and Stirred Facebook page. And it's down to you guys to just give it a score out of 10. And then what I do, I then add it all up, and then about September time, I then reveal the results and see. It has been interesting because certainly over the past 2 years, the #1 positions changed and the top 10 have kind of changed. It'll be either down to different people participating or people's views kind of changing, or it could be down to the fact that, you know, we do just have a few more of them expanded scores, which obviously kind of changes people's views. Last year, in the midst of the Sound Off, La La Land had released Her Majesty's Secret Service and Thunderball. Those expanded scores I don't think kind of really included, because those titles may have been and gone when they were announced, but they will be included this year. So Thunderball and Her Majesty's Secret Service, well, I mean, Her Majesty's Secret Service may come out at #1 again, but Thunderball may change because of the expanded scores. So yeah, that's already started. Go over to the pages now, giving your vote, you know, out of 10 for The World's Not Enough, which I released last Wednesday. That's the current kind of score, music, soundtrack, whatever you like, that's playing. Skyfall will be released on Wednesday, so it's down to you to keep an eye out and to give, you know, out of 10, your sort of ratings on Thomas Newman's work on Skyfall. That's it for today. And I just hope that I've recorded this one, because this is actually the second take, because I started doing the other one, it wasn't recording, and then I ended up doing it again, which the second take actually seemed a lot more smoother. So I just hope that this is recorded. So anyway, yes, please like and share, and I will see you again next time.